Shabbat Shalom from Temple Concord. I'm standing today in the hallway outside the bathrooms, which might be an interesting spot for a discussion about the weekly Torah portion. But I think there's actually a very important lesson in the Torah that connects us, believe it or not, with the bathrooms. We're in Leviticus and we're reading a parsha called Acharei Mot, and in the midst of that is this verse that has been bandied about forever about homosexuality. A man shall not lie with another man as he would with a woman. It's an abomination. And the question is, what do we do with that verse? And for centuries, people actually believed exactly what it said literally, but they also didn't understand how the human body works and how our genes work and how we're formed and so on. But you and I live in the 21st century, and we've learned new things. And so we know, for example, that one doesn't choose to be homosexual, that one is born and has a predilection towards one gender or the other, and that's just sort of the way it is. And that there isn't a question of an abomination or not, that what our Torah is teaching is about how we behave, and do we act like the foreign neighbors that we had back then did, having freewheeling sex all the time, male, female didn't matter, or do we understand the notion of a committed monogamous union, gay or straight? And in our world, certainly as Reform Jews, we've come to accept that a committed monogamous gay union is a new concept. It's a concept that our ancestors didn't understand. And so we look at the verse in this week's Torah portion and say, well, it's fairly easy to ignore it because it's built on an understanding that is limited, and that we today have a better understanding, and so we can supersede it. So how does that connect with the bathrooms? Well, when this building was built, we understood that the bathrooms were for males and for females. But we live in a world today, in 2016, where we understand that there are many of us who are transgender, and these two definitions don't always fit. And so right now at the temple, as we're in the middle of our capital campaign, one of our goals is to redo the restrooms. Now, it's a lofty goal and it's a good goal, because if you've been in our temple bathrooms, you know they need work. The question will be, though, do we recognize where our people have come to, and do we recognize what our movement, the National Reform Movement, is actually teaching us? Which is very clear to say that we ought to move and transition to having non-genderized bathrooms, that we ought to be fully welcoming. If you go to Israel, for example, the bathrooms have floor-to-ceiling stalls, and the sinks are in a separate area, and it's all non-genderized. Just as our water fountains, for example, there isn't a male and a female water fountain, there's a water fountain. And at home, none of us have male and female bathrooms. We have bathrooms that are for everybody all the time. And if the synagogue is our home, and I think we all believe it is, we ought to reflect that. So you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks and months as we move forward with the campaign and we move forward in redoing our building and making our building represent our values. So on some level, this isn't just about a bathroom, it's also about our values. And our values as Reformed Jews reflect the notion that we see the dignity of every human being and the divinity of every human being without regard to what their gender is or what gender they prefer, or for that matter, their hair color or their age or their skin color or their eye color or their height or their weight or any other factor that might describe them. We see each other as humans who are all God-given, filled with God-given gifts, and all who are made in the image of God. So when I read that verse in Torah this week, I look at it and say, wow, look how far we've come. Our ancestors had a very primitive understanding of how humans work, and we have grown. And though the verse remains there to remind us of how far that journey has been, our understanding of it has changed, and what we do with it has changed. I hope you can join us for Shabbat services Friday evening. Services will be at 7:30. It's the first Friday of the month. Saturday morning, we have a Tat Shabbat service at 10 a.m. We also have Torah study at 10 a.m. At 11, we'll celebrate the bat mitzvah of Zoe Costanza, who's a wonderful young woman, and we look forward to celebrating with her. On Sunday morning, of course, it's Mother's Day, so don't forget to celebrate all of the mothers in your family. And the Brotherhood has a meeting on Sunday, and there's lots of other things going on. On Tuesday evening, our film series, our synagogue series, will continue. And coming up in the next few weeks, there are a couple of big events. Our annual Mensch of the Year dinner is coming on May 22nd. And on Sunday, May 15th, we'll be welcoming a wonderful scholar, Rabbi Lance Sussman, who is one of the preeminent American Jewish historians, who will be speaking with us Sunday morning. And so I hope you'll mark your calendars and plan to join us. For now, I want you to look at the Torah with me, look at that verse, and recognize the historical nature of it, and recognize how far we've gone, and recognize how much more we still need to do. And when you look at the bathrooms, Notice that these two are an antique vision of where we once were, and that the time to change them is upon us, and that we now have a responsibility to make our bathrooms and our synagogue building and everything else reflect our modern values. Shabbat Shalom for now. Look forward to seeing you at the temple.